about the court, I think you mentioned we wanted to talk about the court as a tiebreaker. And a lot of these discussions are going to be talking about what happens when we have parents who are joint decision makers who wind up disagreeing about something, which is by far I don't know about you, Ryan, but it's by far the most common scenario that I see when there are decision-making issues that arise in my cases.
Yeah, June, July, August. I've certainly had cases where a child was sitting at home, for example, because they could not agree on the school. And I know that some judges, they kind of carve out, they know it's coming, that they're going to get a slew of disputes on school. So, and again, it depends on the judge. So talk to me about what happens in those cases, or what is at play, the legal issues at play when people can't agree on school.
Right. So, well, for a long time, until September of this year, there was a real question about whether the court, whether any court had the authority to actually break a tie between parents who couldn't agree on school or vaccination. In September, a case came out of the Colorado Court of Appeals in re Marriage of Thomas that said, nope, trial courts have the ability to break that tie. And they have the authority now, according to the Colorado Court of Appeals. That decision might be going up to the Colorado Supreme Court, and if it does, the Supreme Court might weigh in, but they also might not. And if that's the case, then this decision is what stands. So if you are going to a judge and you're saying we can't agree about where to send our child to school, judge, make the decision. It's hard for judges, and I think they don't like doing it because they're essentially having to step into the position of a parent, and they don't know anything about. They know very little about the kid. So, parents are going to be presenting, in the case of school choice, presenting things like, statistics and test scores and neighborhood and, all of these, all of the tens of thousands of issues that make deciding where your kid goes to school hard enough for married couples. Going to be presenting that to the court and asking the court to make a choice between, between this school over here and that school over there. And that's a hard place for courts to be.
An alternative is, you referenced it earlier, as a decision maker. So can you explain for our audience why a parenting coordinator decision maker, a PCDM, or an arbitrator, or a PCDM with arbitration authority, why parents often will use the alternative method to break a tie, for example, in the school issue or vaccines? You referenced it in the Crouch case. So talk to me about what that rubric or that framework is based on.
So the main reason that, or the main advantage, I think, to having someone like a PCDM or an arbitrator in place to make decisions, to break ties, is speed. As you mentioned earlier, the courts can get really backlogged, especially now with COVID. And having someone in place can get you a decision more quickly. And often these decisions are extremely time sensitive. And while it would be great if all parties were very forward looking about school choice before it really became an urgent matter, that's not always the case, just because we're all human. So parents, when they disagree in July about where to send their child to school starting in August, need a decision to be made much more quickly than a court can make it. And that is the main reason I see most people turning to private resolution for those types of issues.
Yeah, I agree. And I've seen situations where parents went to a PCDM and they did not have attorneys, or they at least had the attorneys kind of working in the background, but they presented to the PCDM, who, in this circumstance, it was just on one discrete issue where the children go to school. They presented Google Drive or Google Maps about the commute, because that was one of the main issues, is how long was it going to take, and the sports programs, school, greatschools.org, and those sorts of things. And they were allowed a whole day. Now, they paid for it, but they went and they presented their case, and the PCDM really came out with a very thoughtful decision. And not to say that judges, a district court judge is not thoughtful. It's just the bandwidth. And
Right.
so both parties knew that they were going to get more time and a more thoughtful consideration. And it ended up, really working out. But at least for my clients, there could be a dispute about whether or not the kids should go to Mexico and whether or not that's safe, and all these other issues about football, whether a child should play football. And when you have that institutional knowledge that is acquired over time, it is, there's something to be said for those PCDMs.